Without Caitlin Clark, where does your excitement level lie with this Indiana Fever team? And with Caitlin Clark being absent from basketball activities, since Caitlin Clark is out from injury, has that impacted your excitement level with the rest of the teams in the W? And then every time since, that number has gone down, 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 down. So that asks the question. Out of sight, out of mind. You're not watching the Fever? You really don't care about the other teams either right now. You're watching the Fever? Yeah, I'll check out that team. I'll check out that team. But no Caitlin Clark, you're not too interested.
What happens when an entire league is built on one rookie and she suddenly disappears? The WNBA just found out the hard way. Ratings nosedive from millions to barely 200,000, and the silence from leadership is deafening. The truth is, Caitlin Clark's injury didn't just take her off the floor, it ripped the mask off a league that never built a real foundation. Today, we're exposing how one pulled groin revealed the WNBA's most fragile secrets.
At the WNBA, that Kathy Engelbert saw some of the ratings that I'm about to show you now and said, hey, Indiana Fever, can you do us a favor? Can you do us a solid? Can you just tease a Caitlin Clark return, kind of boost these up a little bit? One matchup, the Chicago Sky versus the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, the league's two most noticeable names on the court at the same time. Can you just dangle a Caitlin Clark return in front of the fans' faces, try to boost these ratings up a little bit? There was one matchup that this league can consistently rely on to produce massive viewership numbers.
And why this isn't just about Clark, but every player's future. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video.
This past Saturday, Angel Reese said, not even worth my time, I'm not showing up. She stayed home. Caitlin Clark out there signing autographs as she always does. And that's the predicament the WNBA now finds themselves in. Caitlin Clark has been out a month and 1 day. Angel Reese has been out for the last week and a half. This past Saturday, neither of them played on the court. This past Saturday was the lowest rating these two teams have had since Caitlin Clark has entered the league. The first time these two teams matched up this year, massive number.
Imagine this. 1 week you've got a WNBA game pulling over 3 million people to their TVs, and the next week that number has fallen to just a couple 100,000. That isn't a slow decline, that's almost straight off a cliff. How does that happen in a professional league that's supposed to be healthier than ever? The answer is simple and uncomfortable at the same time. It all comes down to one player, Caitlin Clark. From the moment she stepped into the league, Clark became the biggest draw the WNBA had ever seen. Every headline, every promo, every broadcast was built around her.
Versus last year's season average on ABC. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, first time head-to-head this season, 2.7 million average viewers. 2.7 million average views on ABC. Peaked with 3.1 million viewers, up 115%. We saw the Caitlin Clark foul. We saw the Caitlin Clark triple-double. We saw the Chicago Sky get absolutely destroyed. We saw the investigation heard around the world all take place, all stem from this game.
It almost didn't matter what other players were doing. That spotlight followed her everywhere. She had people who never once watched a WNBA game suddenly tuning in, debating every play she made as if the entire season revolved around her stat line. And honestly, in the way the league marketed it, it did. Now here's the problem. The second Clark went down with injury, almost overnight, the buzz collapsed. Games featuring the Indiana Fever had been consistently featured on primetime slots, beating out other sports programming and creating the kind of conversation that made you think this was finally the moment the WNBA had been waiting for.
Saturday's Fever Sky WNBA regular season game averaged 1.92 million viewers on CBS, which at the time marked the 8th largest WNBA regular season audience since 2001 and the 10th largest including the playoffs.
But then, without her on the floor, Those ratings that once peaked at 3.4 million viewers crashed to about 200,000. Think about how dramatic that is. Stadiums didn't suddenly empty out, tickets were still being sold, but what mattered to networks and sponsors, the television numbers, were nowhere near sustainable. And this can't just be put on one injury. It happened because the league acted like she was the only story worth telling. Instead of putting the spotlight on rivalries that were years in the making or giving fans new reasons to follow veterans who had carried the league for a decade, everything was Caitlyn this, Caitlyn that. Behind the scenes, veterans were noticing too. Players who had been all-stars, who had won titles, who had built the identity of the WNBA, started feeling invisible. They didn't trash her rise publicly, but there were whispers that the league's decision to ignore their legacies was backfiring. Sponsors saw it just as clearly. When Clark was in the spotlight, the WNBA became a hot property to invest in. Ads were running non-stop. New endorsements popped out of nowhere, and brands were eager to connect themselves to the wave she was creating. But once she wasn't there to draw eyes, that momentum stuttered. That kind of pullback showed something serious. This isn't a broad foundation of interest. This is a house of cards held up by one person. It brings up a question most fans don't want to think about. What if the public realizes that without Caitlyn Clark, the excitement fades almost instantly? That is a nightmare scenario for a league that wants to be taken seriously as more than just a niche product. Because if interest depends on one rookie, then sustainable growth was never really there to begin with. The truth is, this collapse wasn't just exposed in the ratings, it was baked in from the start. The sport has had players worth watching for decades. Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, Candace Parker, stars who should have been the face of campaigns, rivalries, and league-wide narratives. But when you market only one storyline, even if it's the most popular one, you're begging for the letdown when fans realize there's nothing deeper to keep them watching. So in a strange way, this ratings dive might be the most honest reflection yet of the WNBA's position. The cracks were there all along. Clark didn't create them, she just made them visible. And now that fans, networks, and even players are seeing those cracks, the panic isn't going away. Because ratings are just one piece of this puzzle. What happens when players, the very ones the league needs to keep, start rejecting decisions and pushing back on how this whole structure is run? That fight is already starting to take shape. The real issue isn't Caitlyn Clark sitting out. It's the league putting everything on her shoulders. When you tie the future of an entire sport to one rookie, you don't build strength, you build dependency. That's why it feels like the WNBA is stuck in quicksand right now. If leadership keeps ignoring it, the warning signs get bigger. Walkouts, sponsors leaving, fans checking out. That's not some far-off risk. That's what happens if nothing changes. Supporting women's basketball should mean pushing for fair pay, better promotion, and real investment in all players, not just waiting for one star to carry everything.